For 18 months, Tony had quietly delivered pizzas through the neighborhoods of Tucson, Arizona. Nobody paid attention to the middle-aged driver in the Domino's uniform, until the night he identified a pipe bomb during a routine delivery, and evacuated 3 city blocks with the precision of someone who'd done it before. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden expertise, split-second decisions, and the heroes who work in plain sight, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be told, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. Tony Ramirez drove his dented 2016 Honda Civic through the maze of suburban streets in Tucson's East Side neighborhood. The insulated pizza bags in his passenger seat keeping 3 orders warm for the Tuesday evening rush. At 43, he'd been delivering for Domino's on East Broadway Boulevard for 18 months. Long enough to know which houses tipped well, which dogs barked at delivery drivers, and which neighborhoods to avoid after dark. The Civano development stretched across several square miles of desert landscape that had been transformed into middle-class suburbia, complete with artificial lakes, walking paths, and homeowner association rules about lawn maintenance. Streets with names like Desert Willow Drive and Saguaro Ridge Way wound through identical stucco houses painted in approved southwestern earth tones. Tony's first stop was 4127 Painted Sky Court, a single-story house with the same red tile roof and beige stucco exterior as every other home in the subdivision. As he parked his Honda at the curb and grabbed the pizza bag containing 1 large pepperoni with extra cheese, he followed the same routine he'd performed thousands of times. Check the address, verify the order, walk to the front door, ring the bell, but something was different tonight. As Tony approached the front porch, his eyes automatically scanned the area, a habit so ingrained after years of military training that he did it without conscious thought. Most delivery drivers would have focused on finding the house number and avoiding sprinkler systems. Tony noticed things others missed: the position of outdoor lighting, potential concealment spots, unusual objects that didn't belong in a typical residential setting. Tonight, he noticed the package. It sat next to the front door, partially hidden by a decorative planter filled with desert landscaping. Cardboard box, about the size of a shoebox, no return address visible from his angle. Nothing inherently suspicious about a package on a porch. Amazon deliveries were as common as pizza orders in suburban America. But Tony's trained eye caught details that would have been invisible to most people. The box was positioned deliberately, not casually dropped by a delivery driver. The tape sealing it was too neat, too precise. Most concerning, there were 2 thin wires extending from the bottom of the box, painted brown to match the porch decking, but visible to someone who knew what to look for. Tony stopped walking. For a moment, he stood completely still, his mind processing what he was seeing through the lens of experience most pizza delivery drivers didn't possess. He'd spent 8 years as an explosive ordnance disposal specialist with the U.S. Army, including 3 deployments to Afghanistan, where improvised explosive devices were a daily threat. He'd defused more bombs than he could count, and he recognized the signatures of homemade explosives with the same clarity that a mechanic recognized engine problems. The package on the porch wasn't a delivery from Amazon. It was an IED. Tony backed away slowly, returning to his Honda while appearing to check his phone as if confirming the delivery address. His movements were casual and natural, nothing that would alert anyone watching from neighboring houses or security cameras. But his mind was racing through threat assessment procedures he hadn't used since leaving the Army 4 years earlier. Who was the target? The homeowners at 4127 Painted Sky Court were Paul and Janet Morrison, a retired couple in their 70s, who'd moved to Tucson from Minnesota. Tony had delivered to them 6 times over the past year. Always polite, always tipped exactly 15%. No obvious reason anyone would want to harm them. But bombs weren't always about the intended victims. Sometimes they were about testing delivery methods, creating fear, or drawing first responders into secondary attacks. How sophisticated was the device? From his brief observation, it appeared to be a relatively simple pipe bomb with a timer, or remote detonator. Not military-grade explosives, but potentially lethal within a 30-foot radius, and capable of causing significant structural damage to the house and neighboring properties. How much time did he have? Unknown. The device could detonate in minutes, hours, or days, depending on its trigger mechanism. But Tony couldn't assume he had time to debate options. He pulled out his personal cell phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? This is Tony Ramirez. I'm a pizza delivery driver at 4127 Painted Sky Court in the Civano subdivision. I need to report a suspected explosive device on the front porch. The dispatcher's tone immediately became more focused. Sir, can you repeat that? Did you say explosive device? Yes. I'm currently in my vehicle parked at the curb. There's a cardboard package next to the front door with wires extending from it. Based on my military experience with explosive ordnance disposal, this appears to be an improvised explosive device. Are you in immediate danger? Potentially. I'm maintaining safe distance, but there are occupied houses within the blast radius. Sir, I'm dispatching units immediately. Do not approach the house. Can you help us evacuate the immediate area? Tony looked around the neighborhood. Lights were on in houses throughout the subdivision. Children were playing in front yards. An elderly man was walking his dog 2 houses down. Normal suburban evening activity that could turn tragic in seconds. I can assist with evacuation, but you need bomb squad response. This isn't a hoax call, as Tony ended the call with 911. He realized his quiet life as an anonymous pizza delivery driver was about to become much more complicated. Within minutes, the peaceful suburban evening was shattered by the sound of approaching sirens. Tony remained positioned near his Honda Civic, using the vehicle as partial cover while maintaining visual contact with the suspected device. He'd placed the pizza bags on his roof to signal other first responders that he was the caller, not a threat. The first units to arrive were Tucson Police Department patrol officers from the East Side Division. Officer Maria Santos emerged from her patrol car with the cautious awareness of someone responding to a potential bomb threat. But it was clear she'd never actually dealt with explosive devices in the field. "Are you the individual who called this in?" she asked Tony, maintaining distance while assessing the situation. "Yes, ma'am. Tony Ramirez. I was making a pizza delivery when I observed what appears to be an IED on the front porch." Santos looked toward the house, squinting in the evening light. "Can you point out what you're seeing?" Tony gestured carefully toward the porch. Cardboard box next to the door, partially concealed by the planter. 2 wires extending from the base, painted, to blend with the decking. Box is positioned deliberately, not dropped casually. Officer Santos keyed her radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I need immediate response from Bomb Squad and Fire Department. Also need patrol units to establish perimeter for neighborhood evacuation." Within minutes, additional patrol cars arrived, along with a Tucson Fire Department hazmat unit and an ambulance. The scene began to take on the organized chaos of a major emergency response. Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez, supervisor for the East Side Division, approached Tony after conferring with the other responding officers. "Mr. Ramirez, I need to understand your level of expertise here. What makes you confident this is an explosive device rather than just a suspicious package?" Tony had been dreading this question. For 18 months, he'd successfully maintained his anonymity as just another delivery driver. But public safety trumped personal privacy. "Sergeant, I served 8 years in the Army as an explosive ordnance disposal specialist. 3 deployments. To Afghanistan, hundreds of confirmed IED disposals. What I'm seeing on that porch matches the construction patterns of devices I encountered in theater." Rodriguez's expression shifted immediately. "You're EOD trained?" "Combat engineer initially, then cross-trained to EOD. Last rank was staff sergeant before I separated in 2019. "Jesus Christ." Rodriguez keyed her radio. "Dispatch, be advised. We have an EOD-qualified individual on scene who can assist with threat assessment until bomb squad arrives." The Tucson Police Department's bomb disposal unit was located at the main headquarters on South Stone Avenue, nearly 20 minutes away. Under emergency response conditions, the Pima County Sheriff's Office had additional EOD capabilities, but coordinating multi-agency response would take time they might not have. Rodriguez made a command decision. "Staff Sergeant Ramirez, I know this is outside normal protocols, but can you provide technical guidance until our specialists arrive?" Tony looked toward the house, then at the neighborhood around them. Families were starting to emerge from their homes, curious about the emergency vehicles. Children on bicycles were gathering at the police perimeter, drawn by the excitement of sirens and flashing lights. "Sergeant, I'm not officially certified anymore, and I'm not carrying insurance for this kind of consultation." "Understood, but you're the most qualified person here until backup arrives." Tony made his decision. "We need to evacuate everything within a 150-foot radius immediately. That includes the houses on both sides and across the street. If this device has been placed to target first responders, there could be secondary devices positioned to catch you." Evacuation routes. Rodriguez began coordinating the evacuation while Tony continued his assessment. Using binoculars borrowed from one of the patrol officers, he studied the device more carefully. "Sergeant, I can see the device more clearly now. It's definitely homemade, probably pipe bomb construction. Timer mechanism visible on the side, but I can't determine how much time is remaining from this distance." "How dangerous are we talking?" "Lethal. Radius approximately 30 feet. Significant structural damage possible out to 60 feet. Glass breakage and shrapnel danger out to 150 feet. If there are secondary devices, all bets are off." By now, neighbors from throughout the subdivision had been evacuated to a temporary staging area 3 blocks away. The Morrison family, the intended pizza recipients, had been removed from their home and were being questioned by detectives about possible motives for targeting them. When the TPD bomb squad finally arrived, led by Detective Mike Chen, Tony expected to be dismissed and replaced by official personnel. Instead, Detective Chen sought him out immediately. "You're the EOD guy who called this in?" "Former EOD, Tony Ramirez." Chen studied Tony's face. "I know that name. You were with the 759th EOD Company in Afghanistan, weren't you?" Tony was surprised. "You were there?" "Different unit. But I remember the briefings about your team's work in Helmand Province. You guys saved a lot of lives." The recognition was both validating and uncomfortable. Tony had left the military specifically to avoid these kinds of high-stakes situations. "Detective, I'm just a pizza delivery driver now. This is your show." Chen shook his head. "Maybe officially, but I could use your eyes on this. Two heads are better than one when we're talking about something that could level a city block." What happened next would be retold in Tucson Police Department training sessions for years to come. Detective Chen's bomb disposal robot, a $180,000 piece of equipment designed for exactly this situation, malfunctioned during the approach to the device. A mechanical failure in the manipulator arm left the robot positioned 6 feet from the suspected bomb, but unable to complete its examination or disposal procedures. "We're going to have to go manual," Chen told his team over the tactical radio. "I need someone to approach and assess the device directly." It was the kind of decision that bomb disposal specialists trained for, but hoped never to face. Manual approach to an unknown device carried enormous risk, but sometimes it was the only way to protect civilian populations. Tony, monitoring the Yanma communications from his position behind the police perimeter, made a choice that surprised everyone, including himself. "Detective Chen, request permission to assist with manual approach." Chen's voice came back immediately. "Negative, Ramirez. You're civilian now. I can't authorize that." "You don't need to authorize it. I'm volunteering." Sergeant Rodriguez overheard the exchange. "Ramirez, you don't have to do this. This isn't your responsibility anymore." Tony looked around at the evacuated neighborhood. Families displaced from their homes, children frightened by the emergency response, elderly residents like the Morrisons confused and scared by circumstances beyond their understanding. "Sergeant, I spent 8 years learning how to handle situations exactly like this. If I can help resolve it safely, I have a moral obligation to do so. You could be killed. I could be killed driving home from work tonight. At least this way, if something goes wrong, it means something." Detective Chen's bomb disposal suit was designed for someone of his approximate size and build. Tony, slightly shorter and broader through the shoulders, had to make adjustments, but the protective gear was functional enough for a careful approach. The walk from the police perimeter to the front porch of 4127 Painted Sky Court was approximately 80 yards. In the bomb disposal suit, carrying detection equipment and wearing the helmet that limited his peripheral vision, it felt like the longest walk of Tony's life. But as he approached the device, his training took over. Years of experience in Afghanistan had taught him to focus on the technical aspects of the situation rather than the emotional weight of potential consequences. The device was indeed a pipe bomb, constructed with commercial materials available at any hardware store. The timer mechanism was simple but functional, and Tony could see that approximately 4 minutes remained before detonation. Working with the steady hands that had saved lives in Helmand Province, Tony began the delicate process of render safe. Procedures: disconnect the timer circuit. Separate the detonator from the main charge. Neutralize the device component by component until it was no longer capable of causing harm. 3 minutes and 47 seconds later, Tony stood up and keyed his radio. "Device is rendered safe. No longer a threat." The cheer that went up from the police perimeter could be heard throughout the Civano subdivision. As Tony walked back toward the command post, removing the bomb disposal helmet, he was met by Detective Chen, Sergeant Rodriguez, and what seemed like half the Tucson Police Department. "Outstanding work, Ramirez," Chen said, shaking his hand. "Textbook renders safe procedure." "Just glad everyone's going home safely tonight," Tony replied. Sergeant Rodriguez approached with a question that Tony had been expecting. "Ramirez, I have to ask, what's a decorated EOD specialist doing delivering pizzas? Tony was quiet for a moment, considering how much of his story to share. Sergeant, I spent 8 years defusing bombs and seeing what happens when they go off. When I got out of the Army, I wanted a job where the worst thing that could happen was someone complaining about cold pizza. And now? Tony looked around at the neighborhood returning to normal, families walking back to their homes, children resuming their evening activities. Now I'm reminded that sometimes you can't escape who you're trained to be. And maybe that's not always a bad thing. The investigation into the pipe bomb revealed that it had been placed by a disturbed individual targeting the Morrison family because of a neighbor dispute over landscaping violations. The suspect was arrested 3 days later based on surveillance, footage and forensic evidence from the device. Tony Ramirez returned to delivering pizzas for Domino's, but word of his actions spread throughout the Tucson community. Customers who had barely noticed him before began recognizing him as the pizza delivery driver who'd saved the neighborhood. The Tucson Police Department offered Tony a position as a civilian bomb disposal consultant, which he declined. But he did agree to occasionally assist with training exercises, helping teach patrol officers to recognize the signs of improvised explosive devices. Detective Chen nominated Tony for a Civilian Valor Award, which he accepted on the condition that the ceremony be kept small and low-key. Most importantly, Paul and Janet Morrison, the couple who never received their pepperoni pizza that Tuesday evening, invited Tony and his family to dinner the following week. They'd learned that heroes sometimes wear Domino's uniforms and drive Honda Civics. At The Human Stories, we believe that expertise never really leaves you, even when you try to leave it behind. Sometimes the skills we develop in extraordinary circumstances find their way into ordinary moments when they're needed most. Tony Ramirez thought he was done defusing bombs when he left the Army. But when his neighbors needed those skills, muscle, memory, and moral courage combined to save lives. Tell us in the comments, have you ever had to use skills from your past in an unexpected situation? What did you learn about yourself in that moment? And from what city are you watching this story unfold? Subscribe to The Human Stories for more tales about hidden heroes, second chances, and the reminder that you never know what someone is capable of until circumstances demand it. We'll see you in the next story. And remember, that person delivering your pizza might have skills that could save your life someday.